My name is Dr. Gaetano Dube. I am an NRIF-rated researcher, and I'm currently working as a ecotourism management lecturer at Valley University of Technology. I was born and bred in Chiredzi, which is a small town, sugarcane plantation that is found in the southeast of Zimbabwe, just close to the border of South Africa and Zimbabwe. Southern African people have got a common ancestry. Most of the people that you would find perhaps in countries such as Zimbabwe, Malawi, Zambia, and the entire part of the Southern Africa, most of the lineages come from the Umfekane period, where people from the Zululand moved across and then decided to follow and make settlement in various parts of Southern Africa. So I come from the Dube people. Dube, the zebra, which is one of the most beautiful animals in Southern Africa. We know that Dube is an important animal. In Shona, they say manjenjenje gandalavaskana chino gandura chikadanedza vamwe. Zulu, they'll say Dube umtembo oztembai.
Dube nimtend, Dube gabaisa, kushwayo. Shozi kafani kanomkhwayiba, kafana fuza mafu, makama, nyamazane, mbuyase, lushozi, mafukuze. Zwakele, bayithubela imthende, amakhamateli njengamagwababa. Kushwayo, habane, dondya, silwane sihle, bonambi. Buyazi akathekeli emanqulumaneni, buyazi ongakhathalele abafokazana, odume ngezinquluma. Biyahlehla mageza ngobisi abanye begeza ngamanzi. Dubule dede, ntamo yendondo, kasipho abantu ngokubadubulela. Silwane kadila kangothoma, mqhawe, dobomude, mafukuze.
NRIF-rated researchers are the highest prestigious scientists who are also acknowledged globally, and the government does look upon these people to provide real answers to real problems that are facing society. As a rated researcher, I conduct a lot of research on sustainability. Particularly, much of my research focus has been on tourism and climate change. So this is a very important aspect in terms of the tourism industry, because in as much as the tourism industry is one of the critical drivers of economies in developing countries, particularly where at least 1 in 10 people are employed in the tourism industry. My role then is to bring an understanding to exactly what is happening from an ecological and social and also from a humanistic point. In as much as I'm a cosmopolitan person, I think there's a lot of value in terms of the identity. My identity then is informed by both my totem and then my religion. I think there's a lot of value in terms of understanding our identity through, I think, the preservation and conservation of our ecology, as it allows us to then embrace sustainability in a manner that talks to issues to do with biodiversity, and it allows us to also embrace our culture and give value and meaning to our identity as a people. And our wildlife is an important part of our identity. If we look at the indigenous people, we have got, I think, one of the richest biodiversity in terms of animals. That's where you find, I think, largest animal population. And that talks to the conservation practices that were practiced. Each of the totems, to an extent, were also used in terms of trying to conserve our natural resources, because if you're a Dube, naturally you would be forced to protect the Dubes. We know that we have got what are called ecosystem services in science, and those are derived from the natural environment, both the flora and the fauna. So we get a lot of our medicines, medicines that are actually patented. Most of them, they come from Africa. As cosmopolitan people, I think we need to understand that the environment is not infinity. So there are certain thresholds that we need to observe and respect to develop, not at the expense of the environment. The field of tourism geography did chose me because the inclination was also to respond to the human, socio-economic and environmental demands that are currently there. The past decade has been quite catastrophic in terms of extreme weather events that we have experienced on the world, and that have got a lot of bearing in terms of the developmental agenda of both the developing and also the developed country. This impact is actually more significant on developing countries such as South Africa, Zimbabwe, and all the other Southern African countries where the adaptation capacity is actually low. I had to respond to, I think, the outcry that Victoria Falls was drying, and I needed to understand what exactly is happening, because there was no study that has been actually conducted to understand what climate change means for Victoria Falls. That became then the genesis of my research agenda in terms of tourism and climate change.
During the time when Mzilikazi migrated from KwaZulu-Natal for political reasons and ended up settling in Zimbabwe. And so it could be that there could be Dubes who would have initially settled from the north into KwaZulu-Natal, into Mozambique, into Zimbabwe.
The history of Southern African people in general is not well documented. And I think it is very important that we trace in order for us to be able to understand the dynamics, I think, the origins of our totems.
We may not be able to harvest from oral history or oral tradition the same way that we harvest other written documents.
There are so many things that you don't learn about except to view it from that collective memory of the people who have lived before us. So it is a continuity, and it forms a bridge between the past and the present.
What we see is that the association with animals is led to a measure of conservation of different animals by different tribal groups.
We are part of nature. We come from nature, and we are part of that ecosystem. We are connected to nature in a very, very, very strong way.
Because there was such a strong connection between indigenous peoples and their environment, that their everyday experiences were based on that environment.
Dube mina. Unizwakele umaqhamu esesikhwebezini. Buyazi Donda.
The Dubes, their history is in two folds. There are Dube who are Ngobos. The other one is Dube from Mbuyazi, who's the son of Mbonambi. We have a Mbonambi tribe and Mbuyazi tribe.
It was also a way of sort of separating this one huge clan into different sub-clans. And so they would use, there is still the same totem, but identified in a slightly different way.
Abakangobo, they are called Amakati because they are from the third wife. And they moved from Inkandla via Enanda area. And when they were there, they carry on as Ngobos, not Dubes.
Indigenous peoples were migratory, just like any people can be. So in the same way, perhaps, that the Western people came into Africa or into any other indigenous community. So indigenous people also used to migrate quite a lot.
Isizwe lesakwaDube sifele enyakatho. Njobe kuye kuthiwe thina amaDube. Njobe silapha nje singabakwamhlanga.
Most of the Southern African peoples, they actually came from the north, from around Tanzania, and they were migrating southward. And so they adopted these different totems as they were migrating southward for identification and other purposes.
In 1820, in the 19th century, Mzilikazi was one of the greatest warriors of King Shaka Ilembe, Elaka Amanya Malembe, Kalipa. And he fled KwaZulu and went to the current Zimbabwe in KwaBulawayo. And when he left KwaZulu, he left with about 300 men and women from different tribes within the Zulu nation, because at that time it was the period of Mfecane, so the Zulu nation was still in the making. So Mzilikazi took these men, and they did not go straight to Zimbabwe or Southern Rhodesia. They went through Kurman. They fought with the Sotho-speaking people and the Tswanas, and also they also met with the Venda-speaking people.
During the time when Mzilikazi migrated from KwaZulu-Natal for political reasons and ended up settling in Zimbabwe. And we understand that he went right across South Africa into Botswana and then into southern Zimbabwe. And so it could be that they could be Dubes who would have initially settled from the north into KwaZulu-Natal, into Mozambique, into Zimbabwe.
They were called Amatebele. Amatebele means strangers in Lesotho. So they were strangers in southern Rhodesia. And later they were called Amatebele, Amandebele, because they were Nguni people amongst the Shona-speaking people. Even today, if you go to KwaBulawayo, you'll find that there are many people who belong to Dube clan. So those are the Dubes from Zimbabwe, are the same Dubes that comes from KwaZulu-Natal, so they are Ngunis. And hence their language that they speak isiNdebele, which is a member of the Nguni language group.
We have Dubes among the Ndebeles who are more closely related to the Zulu in KwaZulu-Natal.
Ngeke size siphele isiZulu ngoba isiZulu siwumlando wemvelo ngoba sekuqaleni. Kungakho ke ibukezwa namhlanje ukuthi sisakwazi yini lokhu na.
Some of these historical discourses are not clear because sometimes the information is distorted because it's collected by people who are outside, the people who really lived at that time. Zonke lezi zinto zazingabhaliwe phansi kodwa babeyilanda kulaba abaphile esikhathini esiphambili athi ubaba wayenza kanje kanje nathi senza kanje.
Sinikezwe isikhumbuzo khona oqala nikezwe isikhumbuzo kuze singakulibali uphawu lesintu.
The story behind a zebra and Dube. At one stage, we were told that Umbonambi had a ceremony at his household where all the clan gathered there. And some of the people, or ingxenye yabo, yabona izebra. Yase iyaphuma iyobuka izebra. And they spent the whole day watching the beauty of the zebra. And when they discovered, Mbonambi and Mbuyaz discovered that, they said, from now onwards, you'll not be called Mbonambi or Mbuyaz. We will call you Dube.
The positive effects that this naming of ourselves or associating ourselves with animals has been almost a reverent protection of the animals. It becomes a spiritual connection with that animal. So that has significantly contributed to conservation.
Into isibongo nje hayi negama okisibongo nje ayilokuthi le nto le uyayizila.
The zebra is a sign of beauty, and people adore the animal. So that is why they call themselves Isilwane Esihle, referring to the zebra. And if you go a line down, they say Idube elimtende. Imtende is a blend of black and white, and is also a symbol of unity, where you have two colors together, white and black.
Ngeke umuntu wakithi agqoke isikhumba seDube. Cha, khona angabona umlungu njengoba umlungu phethe isikhumba seDube. Lesikhumba seDube manje bathanda ukuthi uma behlezi nje endaweni ezokuphawula kanje wendla lesi sikhumba seDube asihleli khona kwalokho yana umuntu wakithi yathi mina bambulala umuntu wakithi kwakwenze nje aphinde ngabona enye insizwa eyayi inkulu nje ibhinca ibheshu leDube kanti madoda ingelihle khona lokho yana abafowethu njalo banqunywe logodweni sikhona.
It shows that our culture is more orientated to nature.
Western science, the way it came was not used just for, so that things become better, but it was mostly better for profit. So it was mostly profit driven. They brought in the fertilizers and degraded the environment in the process. And now we are coming back trying to rescue the same environment that was destroyed by profit-oriented scientific innovations.
Ziningi izinto ezifike nabantu abasentshonalanga ezazenziwa yithina kodwa siyibiza ngenye indlela kodwa kuyizona lezo.
Yini abelungu entweni kade sizenza bese bathanda zibuyele kubo isiZulu sise kubelungu kuyiqiniso lokho ngoba uyabona kade la kwakhiwa amaqhugwane izindlu zesiZulu indlu manje amayisuka manje ngasuswa manje ifika ibekwa lapha kufaka isivalo kuyalala phelena njalo manje akusandile lokho ngani ngoba into eningi izuzwa ngabelungu yonke into manje sesithenga kubona sithatha kubona manje ibona manje thina sesikhonza kubona
kodwa bona masebefika bafika sengathi bafika nento entsha ebingaziwa kubantu abantu they are so attached etshalweni nasezihlahleni ngoba lezi zihlahla ziyasiza njengabantu kufanele sibe nendlela yokuthi sizonge zingapheli. amadube ukuthi kunesihlahla abasihloniphayo abasithatha ngokuthi is-sacred kubona umtholo, isihlahla somtholo. Athanda ukudla leso sihlahla. So ngenxa yokuthi amaduba adla leso sihlahla nabantu bakwaDube sebaze basikhonza leso sihlahla sengathi isihlahla esibhilonga kubona abantu bakwaDube.
Lo muthi lo igama lawo ojwayeleke wakha amathunga umuthi othiwa umkhuhlu. Umkhuhlu ke wona wakha amathunga nenkezo ukuqondana lezi zinto ziqondana nezinto eziyimfuyo. Lezi zinto ukhezo ziyinqoko amathunga. Leyo nto ke iyona mvelo ebesiyazi ke
Gumtree unomkhuhlane eucalyptus wohamba uyoyithatha uyigxobe uyibilise uyiphuze uphele umkhuhlane. So lezo ihlahla zayigcinwa yiza abantu ababethi Gumtree baqeda amanzi bese kuthi emasimini ukudla kungabe kusakhula ngoba amanzi asuke ngasekho. Kodwa babeyigcina abantu abadala ihlahla eziwusizo kubona ngoba wawungeke uhlukise isihlahla ngoba ufuna impande. Yonke into eyayiba yinkinga empilweni wawukwazi ukuthi ukwazi ukuyelapha ngezinto oyithola kuyona imvelo.
Bona namhlanje ngomakhanda katshenwa labo ngoba ungafika ubeke isiluleko. Manje lezi ingane zinamakhanda alikhuni ingane zamanje ngoba kanti kufanele ukuthi ma sizoyibekela kahle ukuthi batabethu ake niqhubeka nale lemvelo lena ukuze ukuthi nikwazi nikhule kahle niziphathe kahle ukuze ukuthi nisimame. Hayi nje ukuthi vele beuvazi nje ezweni umhlaba ingane zingawuhloniphi.
We have got a number of endangered species. We're seeing, I think, sustainable measures being taken on board to feel that I'm contributing to something that is bigger than just me. Becoming a rated researcher, well, I think it makes me feel good that I'm part of the protection of the resources, in as much as we know that the Dube totem is not on the red data list, meaning to say we have got a lot of them. The red data list is a list of endangered species. So this is a list of species that are in trouble in terms of conservation. But I think that protection, it gives me a sense of contributing to something that is bigger. We have got a number of endangered species, and I think as a result of some of the work that we do and the recommendations, we're seeing, I think, sustainable measures being taken on board, and that makes me feel good and to feel that I'm contributing to something that is bigger than just me. The tourism as an industry, it has got impact on the environment, and it is therefore important that that particular tourism industry carries out some remedies in order to protect the environment.
Bunches